All right, we are back with Metro Nashville Vice Mayor Jim Shulman. We're on Facebook at News Channel 5 Nashville, and also on the Plus, the number there if you want to join us. Javier waited through the break, and we'll take his call next. Javier, good morning.
Good morning.
Hi, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I called to disagree with the lady and to just kind of say my opinion.
Sure.
I've been to several places where half the people wear the mask and the other half people are okay not wearing the mask because they have some kind of excuse. I am not all about the mask. I believe that it can hurt us more than it can help us. In a way that if there's a little kid that doesn't have a mask and someone else touches him, shouldn't he wear a mask? And then the other thing is, our rights are being taken away just to destroy a man in office. This is not a pandemic. We should not be using our jobs.
I'm sorry, Javier. I mean, you can make the arguments on politics, and if you want to go that way, a lot of people are. Maybe there's certainly politics involved in this. But to say this is not a pandemic, Javier, you're wrong. All right, so as far as the masks and the like, I mean, there are some people out there that maybe do have conditions where they can't wear masks. I view that to be a minority group there. There's not a lot. Some people may have asthma, they have issues breathing through it. And if you do have a legitimate reason not to wear a mask, I understand that.
Yeah, Nick, I'm trying to be a better listener. So I was trying to understand what Javier's point is. Again, what we were talking about during the break is this level of distrust, this hatred towards each other, whatever. We have to figure out a way to kind of bring everybody back together. And I think I've mentioned this before in the show. It was, after 9/11, this country came together for about 6 months. It was better. People treated each other with, all of a sudden people were going like, we have to pull together. Whether Javier thinks it or not, this is a pandemic. It's been declared a pandemic.
The president will tell you it's a pandemic.
Yeah, I mean, there are, millions of people infected, all these people dying. It's all true. This is a pandemic. And so whether you agree with a lot of the stuff or not, we're all in this together, and people are getting sick, and hospitals are being, we're getting nervous about the hospitalizations. Not, I don't mean to scare people, but we should always be nervous about those numbers to watch them closely. But our numbers are spiking, and again, this is one of the things, we're all in it together, so we have to figure out how to pull it off together and get to the other side. And but it's interesting listening to people who just don't believe this. And I mean, unfortunately, there are real people who are getting really sick and who are dying.
Well, here's the thing, too, that's frustrating, Vice Mayor, and I felt we were coming out of it too soon. I know a lot of people wanted us to get out, but the city made the call. But we know what works, and it was working, okay? And so we saw ourselves going from phase 1 to phase 2, and then the mayor moved to phase 3. And I have no doubt the mayor was under a great deal of pressure. And I think in a candid moment, if I were to ask him and he was to be honest with me, he'd say, probably came out of it a little sooner than I would have liked, but we felt, let's just go with it at this point. I don't know that to be the case, but that's my guess. And we came out of it too soon, but we knew it worked, and we were on the right course. If we had just stayed on it a little bit longer, perhaps, maybe we wouldn't be in this pickle now if the curve and the bell had come down enough. Because you knew when you went to the next phase, right, Jim, that there were going to be people saying, all right, we can get back to it. And that's understandable. We went back to it, but it still hadn't tapered off enough. And that's what's frustrating to me, is because I know there's so many people and others who are going to be out of work again because of this. If we go back, and if the numbers keep skyrocketing, we're going to go back to phase 1. All right? I mean, and that's frustrating when we had already been through this. If we had just stayed with it a little bit longer, and we know it works because you can see in countries like Italy, okay, or cities like New York, where they stuck with it and really pounded it hard and stayed, they're not having those problems. So the bottom line is, anyway, masks don't work, or, I'm going to do it. They work because we've seen it elsewhere, and we see what's happening here now. If we had just stuck with it a little longer, maybe we wouldn't be in the pickle we're in right now.
So I had a conversation last night with a very good friend who lives in Taiwan. And so the question to her was, how many cases do you have over there? And they have basically shut down their borders.
Yeah.
You can't leave or come back in. And whether she's right or not, she said they have one case, and they know who it is. I mean, and they've got them being taken care of. So I don't know if she had all the numbers right, but you are right, Nick. I mean, you know, what the other countries did was they locked down, and they kept it locked down for a while. I know we were antsy to get back out there. All of us were, but. Look at what's happening, and you can look at the data, and you can see. I was looking at it yesterday that when we were in the safer in place, shelter in place, our numbers actually took care of themselves. You know, they went down and they were stable. Once we came out of that, they went back up.
Yeah, and we expected maybe it would come up a bit, but maybe we came out of it too soon. You make Taiwan as a great example. I didn't know that one case. Japan, okay, a country clearly not the population level that we have, but Japan, ratio-wise, based on its population and cases compared to ours, far less. 2,000 cases in Japan. And their Major League Baseball and other sports are opening up this week, regular, going ahead. 2,000 cases because they follow the protocol. It came down. They've got it under control. Hey, listen, on line 3, I want to take him before we go to the break, is Reverend Enoch Fuzz. And it always good to hear from him. Reverend Fuzz, good morning to you, sir.
Hey, Ben.
Nick.
Good morning.
you call into Ben and Nick. I know you're on open line sometimes too. How are you, sir?
How can I help?
But I was really saying hello to Vice Mayor Shulman.
Hello, Pastor Fuzz.
I
can't send messages yet.
I haven't been able to call in, but you know, I've watched all these shows and listened to all of these perspectives and heard what people had to say. And one of the things I want to point out, they said that this was a war, that we're at war. And generally, when you're at war, you bring in the military. Because people are not going to do what it takes for us to win this war. They're not doing what it takes for us to win this war. And if people don't do what it takes, we're not going to win this war. And then another quick thing I know you wanted to get on. People talk about defunding. Is that the word they use? Police. I always say, why don't we fund stuff that we need? Why do we got to defund some stuff when we're underfunding everything? And I don't know what that defunding really means. I mean, why do we got to take $100 million from the police department so crime can go off the chain in 37208? And to provide, you know, other kind of services, those kind of questions I got. But why haven't we put more pressure on people to do what it takes to end this pandemic in America, not just Nashville? We know what it takes, at least that's what we're saying. We've seen what worked, shutting stuff down. It looks like that's what works. What's wrong with forcing people to do this stuff? I know you want your civil rights, but they're not going to do you any good if you're dead. And like today, I often think about I got to go in the hospital. Well, you know what? I bet you there won't be a hospital bed available for me if my doctor tried to get me in the hospital today. I've gone to the hospital and they had to wait like 6 to 8 hours before a bed became available. So with this going on, would I even be able to get a bed? So I'm asking people, think about somebody else. Nick, not Ben. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Well, Reverend Fuzz is right. You know, I wear a mask. One, I think it provides me some protection, but more to protect other people. And Reverend Fuzz, I had a chance to go out and actually interview him, social distancing. We were all wearing masks for a wonderful cause where he's involved, spearheading an effort to raise money for the food pharmacy over at General Hospital that feeds hundreds of people. We're approaching his $100,000 goal. But he's battling stage 4 lung cancer, and he's very sensitive, and I was so glad to hear him call in. Yeah. But that last thing he talked about, don't forget, it's not just for COVID patients. As the hospitals fill up, there are other people, as we used to before this pandemic hit, getting sick every single day, or people like Reverend Fuzz, who, one, obviously with lung cancer is very susceptible, and if he got COVID-19, that might be it. And two, he may need a hospital bed that may not be available because they're all getting filled up with folks who are being exposed to this virus.
Well, what I'll say is, first of all, I'm glad he called in. He is, associate the word hope and the word love with Pastor Fuzz. That's what he spreads. You may not always necessarily believe this message, but he gives me great hope, and he spreads joy and love to people, and I think that's really, really important. He just makes life fun.
Yeah.
And he does great work, and he makes great points. So the one thing I'll tell Pastor Fuzz, and this goes to all your viewers, is I'm interested, particularly with Pastor Fuzz, write down 5 things that we should be doing. I mean, some of it we already know, but sometimes we miss things, or sometimes people just thinking about it, it's like, why don't we try this? I'd love for, as Pastor Fuzz is recuperating and battling, write down those things that you want us to try to do. Same thing with your viewers, and get them to Nick as well, and then we can try.
Yeah.
Because we are, I think when he says we're at war, we're at war with something we can't see, but we're fighting among ourselves. And it's like, we can't do that. We got to figure out how to beat this thing straight on. And because, we're fighting against a virus, but we seem to be, again, fighting more with ourselves.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate. Well, as we go to the break, just the idea of making sure that we take some of these steps because we know what works. And even if it's just for the short term, even if you don't like these things, which I don't like them either, okay, I'm with you on that. And other things, social distancing, I'm not going to any crowded bar or anything like that, even though, I'd like to go out there and go to some gatherings. We know what works, and it can be beaten. It just does. But you're right, we got to work together. Listen, we'll take a break on that note. We'll come back. We have more phone calls and more of our comments. And again, the Reverend also touched on the defunding section, and I want to get your thoughts on that, as well as what the sheriff said yesterday. We'll take a break and be back with more right after this.